When you get into a panel to defend your project, I'm talking about undergraduate projects here. Let me just tell you what you do to defend your undergraduate project. That is after writing it. Now you get into a panel. Schools set up panels for students to come in and defend their project. And the first thing you are told is to tell us what you have. What they're asking for is the summary of the work, and you find the summary, a quick summary in the abstract. So what you do is memorize your abstract. Some cram the abstract. And the danger in cramming the abstract is that if you're asked a straight question, you might forget the next line. Or if you forget one word or two words, you might forget what to do. So the best thing is to understand what is in the abstract, not really just cramming it like that, but something close to that. Read it, understand it, so that you can easily tell it to someone. Practice, of course, with someone. Tell someone the abstract again and again, and you will understand it. Now, you have to understand virtually every word in the abstract, because you might use a term that they will ask you to explain what it is. For instance, you will say that you used purposive sampling to select 300 persons that you studied, and they say, what is purposive sampling? You see, so you need to know some of those key words in the abstract. You might say the study made use of survey research method, and they might ask you, what is survey research method, since you said you used it. So this is why you need to understand the keywords in the abstract. So when they say, tell us what you have, they are saying, let us know your abstract. Now listen, the essence of this is, when you finish with your abstract, you now give them room to ask questions. And this is why you also need to understand some other key aspects of the work. Nobody is going to ask you to read any part of the work, cram any paragraph and read to them. But you need to understand some key things. You said you used a particular theory. So let's say you used the technological determinism theory. They might ask you, how did you apply it to your work? And it's there in your chapter 2, the last part of the theoretical framework. That section where you have theoretical framework, the last part says how you applied it to the work. They might ask you that. Of course, you need to understand how you applied your theory in the work, because the abstract has said virtually everything. So you need to know some aspects of the work so that they will know that you actually did this work, you understand the work. But listen, knowing your abstract, knowing the content, understanding the meaning of key concepts in the abstract, understanding the meaning of key concepts in the abstract is very important, because from there flows the answers to other questions they might ask you. In the abstract, you have the objectives of study. In the abstract, you have the recommendation. In the abstract, you have the findings. So when they ask you, tell us the findings, you've already said it in the abstract. But because you understand the findings, there is no way they'll ask you questions concerning the findings that you can't explain. Now, if you have further questions on how to defend your project, undergraduate project, you can let me know in the comment section. One thing you need to understand is the abstract, like I said, is the summary of the work. And a good abstract says how good a project is. Now, in the title of the work, you need to understand the basics about the title, because they might ask you, some schools might go to the extent of asking you to tell them the variables in your title. If your study is influence of television exposure on academic activities of students. Now, television exposure is one variable. Academic performance is another variable. So you can simply call variables the aspects of the title that change. This, not in order not to be technical, variables are those aspects of the title that affect each other. Which one affects the other? These are the variables. What are the changes that when you have them, the work goes this way or goes that way? For instance, I talked about influence of television exposure on academic activities. Now, television exposure, if it is high, you see, that's why it's a variable. It could be high, it could be low, it could be moderate. Academic performance is also a variable, because you could perform very well you could perform poorly, or you could be an average student. And they are saying the two variables here is it if you watch television too much, will it make you to have low academic performance? So you need to understand the variables in the title. Now, when you read your title, you will know whether it has two variables or three variables or one variable. Now, I'm not going to discuss variables in this particular video. I'm just telling you, giving you a quick way to defend your project when you get into the hall. Of course, confidence is very important. I'm talking about what you need to know from the work you did so that you can tell them in the hall that this is what your work is all about. But you can go to the extent of knowing the variables in your work, because if the lecturers decide to be technical, or they feel your work is too good, they might go a step higher to convince themselves that you should have an A. So you might need to know the variables in the title. But like I said, the basic thing about defending your project is the abstract. You don't just know the abstract. Don't just cram the abstract. Know the keywords in the abstract, their meaning, because from their meaning could stem other questions. Just know them. That nobody is coming to the panel to make you fail. They want to understand, to make you tell them that yes, you know this work very well, and you have mastery of different aspects of the work.